The next important topic is viral hepatitis. Systemic viral infection causing hepatitis is infectious mononucleosis, cytomegalovirus, yellow fever, rubella virus, adenovirus, herpes virus, and hepatitis viruses. The hepatitis viruses includes viruses A, B, C, D, E, and G. Hepatitis A virus. So hepatitis A hepatitis is also called as infectious hepatitis. Scourge of military campaigns since antiquity has been a cause of hepatitis A. It is a benign self-limiting disease and it happens usually in a clinically asymptomatic or mild forms. It occurs throughout the world. It is not a chronic hepatitis or a carrier state is present in it. The virus is basically a small 27 nanometer diameter icosahedral non-enveloped single-stranded RNA virus. It is also called as picornavirus. The viral genome has been categorized or characterized, but only a single serotype has been identified. HIV infection can be transmitted through fecal-oral route and it is shed in stool for up to 2 to 3 weeks. Before almost a week after jaundice appears. It becomes endemic when children are affected. And usually endemic type of hepatitis A occurs in areas where there is substandard hygiene and sanitation. It is mostly a waterborne disease. So because mostly the humans are infected because of hygiene problem, the most common prevention step is inactivation of viral activity, which can be achieved by boiling of the water for 1 minute since it is waterborne, or it can be inactivated by UV radiation on by contact with formaldehyde and chlorine. So these three methods you can use to inactivate the virus. The virus is present in the liver cells, bile, stool and blood during the incubation period and in the pre-icteric phase, that is before 1 week when the jaundice appears, is called as pre-icteric phase. 25% is acute hepatitis. Fatality rate is 0.1%. Serological markers in the hepatitis A, it's usually present in the form of IgM and IgG anti-HIV antibodies. So here the mechanism by which HIV infection causes hepatitis A is poorly understood. An immunological basis is suspected, but the evidence in support is usually in the form of immunological markers like antibodies towards HIV and HIV. That's called as anti-HIV antibody. It is of two types, IgM and IgG. IgM is the early type and IgG is late type. So IgM antibody appears in the serum at the onset of symptoms, that is usually after 45 days, because the incubation period is 15 to 45 days. So immediately after 15 to 45 days, the IgM antibodies appear, and what happens here is it will wean off after certain months. So it is a self-limiting disease. The IgG antibody usually is detected in the serum after the appearance of IgM antibody, this blue line. So this antibody gives a lifelong immunity. So suppose if antibody has appeared, it will stay in that level only throughout the life. Hepatitis B virus. The hepatitis caused by B virus is called as serum hepatitis. It can cause acute hepatitis, non-progressive chronic hepatitis, progressive chronic hepatitis, Fulminant hepatitis, asymptomatic carrier state, it can be a backdrop for hepatitis D virus, which will coexist with hepatitis B, and it can also cause hepatocellular carcinoma. Hepatitis B has been a global problem, and there are more than 300 million carriers in the world. Incubation period of hepatitis B range from 30 to 180 days. The virus is present in all physiological and pathological body fluids except in stool. It is transmitted by transfusion of blood in blood products through body fluids like semen, saliva, sweat, tears, and breast milk. It can also be transmitted through the pathological effusions like pleural effusion and ascites. Dialysis can be a cause. Needle stick accidents, intravenous drug abuse, homosexual activities. If there is infection in the neonatal stage, the child can become a carrier for life. The hepatitis B virus belongs to the family of Heparinaviridae. It is a DNA virus and it can infect multiple animal species. The structure of the hepatitis B virus includes an envelope which is made of small spheres and tubules. These spherical and filamentous forms are most numerous and they coat the surface of the virus. Then the core is called as Dehn particle. Dehn particle is spherical with a diameter of 42 nanometer, and it is actually the DNA of the virus which is there in the Dehn particle. It is partially single-stranded and partially double-stranded. Genome is partially double-stranded and circular DNA molecule. The proteins encoded by these viral genome is hepatitis B core antigen, which is called as hepatitis C antigen. Then core and pre-core regions will be there, which constitutes the envelope antigen, that is hepatitis B envelope antigen or E antigen. Hepatitis B surface antigen, which is also called as HBsAg. This is synthesized and secreted in large quantities by the infected hepatocytes. DNA polymerase is present. Protein from X region, which is called as HBx protein, which is responsible for viral replication and can also cause hepatocellular carcinoma. Now, the hepatitis B, as any form of virus, can replicate in two phases: proliferative phase and integrated phase. So proliferative phase, in proliferative phase, the viral DNA will be separate from the host DNA in the form of episome, that's called as episomal form. Complete virion replication will continue to occur and antigens like HBsAg, HBc antigen will be elicited. These antigen will be recognized by the host HLA antigens present on the T cells, which will activate or sensitize the T cells to cause cytotoxic injury or destruction of hepatitis B infected cells. Integrative phase is where viral DNA will be incorporated or it might be integrated or joined with the host cell genome. That's called as integrative phase. Carrier state is something where hepatitis B surface antigen will persist for more than 6 months. Carrier state with liver damage is where there will be persistence of hepatitis S antigen and envelope antigen, the DNA and the anti-HBc antibody, which will lead to progressive liver damage. Coming to the immunology of the acute stage of hepatitis B. So as we said, the incubation period of hepatitis B is usually 30 to 180 days, which is approximately 4 to 26 weeks. During this phase, the serum transaminases will begin to rise, or serum markers can be detected. After incubation phase, that is after about 180 days, HBe antigen, HBV DNA, and HBs antigen, all these will begin to appear in the serum. The HBs antigen will appear around 6 weeks, HBe antigen will appear around 3 to 6 weeks, and HBV DNA will appear earlier than HBs and HBe. So all this will persist, will they start rising after 180 days, and just after they appear, the jaundice symptoms will start appearing. So this is kind of pre-symptomatic stage. Before the appearance of jaundice, they will already be in the blood or detected in the blood. This is called as acute stage. After 4 to 12 weeks of appearance of these HBV DNA, HBs antigen, and HBe antigen, these will begin to wane off. Okay. Then comes, as soon as these HBV DNA is present in the serum, we can also detect the IgM anti-HBC, that is hepatitis B core antibody of IgM type, can be detected in blood around the same time, and this will persist for up to 20 weeks, and then it will try to come down. After around a gap of again 4 to 12 weeks, anti-HBe antibody, that is antibody towards the HBe antigen, will appear, and this will also come down after 20 weeks. The IgG antibody will start rising around 20 weeks, and it will stay in the blood for life. Okay. The IgG anti-HBs antibody and IgG anti-HBc antibody, both will be present in the blood for lifelong. So it kind of gives a lifelong immunity towards the virus. Now, when does it progress to chronic infection? So the progression of chronic infection is basically depend upon the HBe antigen, HBV DNA, and HBs antigen not weaning off. So if this persists beyond 10 weeks, that is, if this persists beyond 10 weeks of first appearance in the serum, then it is called as a chronic infection. It won't wean off or come down. It will go on persist. Similarly, IgM type of anti-HBc antibody, which appears around the same 4 weeks, should wean off. But it won't wean off. It will plateau and it will be there for life. So that is also a chronic stage. So they'll just be the anti-HBe antibody which will decrease. Rest all will persist throughout. Okay, like IgG anti-HBs, IgG anti-HBc, and all these the HBV DNA, HBe antigen, and HBs antigen. So basically all antigens and its antibodies will be persisting beyond 12 to 20 weeks. So acute infection, 60 to 65% can be in the form of subclinical disease which will recover. Around 20 to 25% will appear symptomatically as acute hepatitis, which will again recover mostly, but very few cases will convert into a fulminant hepatitis leading to death. Around 5 to 10 cases will become carriers. Carriers is something where the surface antigen will be present throughout. Healthy carrier is something, mostly it might be a neonate who fails to clear the HBs antigen from the serum, and it will be there throughout life. Then around 4% of the cases will present as persistence of infection. So I've shown you how it persists. All these viral, the serum markers will persist beyond 10 weeks or 20 weeks. So this persistent, mostly 90% will resolve, but 10 to 33% might become as chronic hepatitis, leading to cirrhosis. Around 50% might lead to cirrhosis, and cirrhosis, 10% of these cirrhotic cases can convert into hepatocellular carcinoma, leading to death. Hepatitis C virus is worldwide in distribution, and it is also transmitted to blood transfusion, inoculations through injections or intravenous channels, through sexual intercourse, that is both in heterosexual and homosexual people. Vertical transmission is from the mother to the fetus. About 90% of post-transfusion hepatitis is of hepatitis C type. 1 to 2% of volunteer blood donors and up to 5% of professional blood donors will be carriers of HCV. Hence, it is important to do a HCV investigation or HCV testing compulsorily for any blood products. Around 15% of acute infection by HCV will resolve, but 85% have chance of getting a chronic hepatitis. So HCV is very notorious for chronic hepatitis rather than acute hepatitis. This will be stable around 80%, and 20% of the cases will undergo cirrhosis, leading to death or hepatocellular carcinoma. Fulminant hepatitis by HCV is very rare. The seropositivity means the appearance of anti-HCV antibodies. It is very high in high-risk individuals like house contacts, homosexuals, hemodialysis patients, hemophiliacs, IV drug abusers, patients with unexplained cirrhosis. Like more than 50% of the HCV infections will be present in cirrhotic patients. High rate of progression to cirrhosis is seen in hepatitis C virus. So how is the virus? So this HCV is a single-stranded enveloped RNA virus having a diameter of 30 to 60 nanometer. It is mostly belonging to Flaviviridae. It is inherently unstable and has multiple layers. The serological and virological markers for HCV are anti-HCV antibodies. Now, anti-HCV antibodies are of three types of anti-HCV IgG assays are available. So these are basically depending upon the different kinds of antigens in the genome. So some of the major anti-HCV antibodies I will be discussing. So hepatitis C virus causes repeated bouts of hepatic damage, persistent infection and chronic hepatitis, which are hallmarks of HCV. Cirrhosis develops 5 to 10 years after the hepatitis C virus infection. The serological diagnosis depends upon elevation of transaminases and detection of anti-HCV antibodies. So as I said, there are different compartments in the genome or different components of the genome, like the C, E1, E2, NS1, NS2, NS3, NS4 and NS5. So out of these, important one is the C region and the NS5 region. So these the antibodies towards these regions are important serological markers for hepatitis C virus infection. The anti-C103, which appears 1 to 3 months after infection, anti-C33C 1 month before appearance of anti-C100, and anti-NS5, which is the earliest in appearance. All these three types of anti-HCV antibodies can be seen or detected in the serum around 1 month of infection. HCV RNA can also be detected by PCR technique, and this will appear just within few days after exposure to HCV. HCV basically causes liver cell injury. Mostly the injury is because of the antibodies attacking the HCV infected cell. So these antibodies will be directed against these antigens of the viruses, and so they'll go and attack the HCV infected hepatocytes. Mostly those cells which attacks are CD8 type of T cells. Okay. Along with that, sometimes in chronic hepatitis C we can find CD4 type of T cells. So CD4 and CD8 type of T cells will cause hepatitis or chronic hepatitis. Hepatitis D virus also is called as delta antigen or hepatitis delta virus. The hepatitis D virus causes replication defective RNA virus. Coming to hepatitis D virus, it is also called as delta virus, HDV, or it is also called as delta agent. HDV is basically a defective virus for which HBV can be a helper. So it is a replication defective RNA virus. It infects only when encapsulated by HBsAg. So it primarily needs previously infected hepatitis B virus infected cell for superinfection. Thus, hepatitis D develops when there is a concomitant hepatitis B infection. It may be a simultaneous infection which is called as co-infection, or it might be it may infect a chronic hepatitis S antigen carrier which is called as superinfection. So this is how a co-infection will occur, where hepatitis D virus the infection will occur along with a simultaneous infection by hepatitis B virus. 3 to 4% of such co-infection will lead to fulminant hepatitis leading to death. 90% will recover with immunity, and this combination going into a chronic stage is very rare, but if it goes, it will lead to cirrhosis. In superinfection, what will happen? This usually the incubation period for superinfection is 30 to 35 days. Chronic HBV infection gets worsened, and here there will be fulminant acute attacks in the form of jaundice, as well as progression of a carrier stage to chronic delta hepatitis stage, leading to cirrhosis can occur. Hepatocellular carcinoma is, however, less common in HBsAg carrier. So what happens here? Already there's a carrier who is infected with hepatitis B virus. So already this patient will be having HBsAg coated cells, and now the HDV virus is coming. So 7 to 10% will lead to fulminant hepatitis. 10 to 15 cases will undergo recovery, and the majority of this will go into a chronic stage leading to cirrhosis. So basically, until now what we have read is hepatitis C virus and hepatitis D virus basically is responsible for chronic hepatitis infections. It is distributed worldwide, but prevalence rate varies widely. In Africa and Middle East, 20 to 40% of hepatitis B carriers show anti-HDV antibodies as well. In USA, it is seen in drug addicts and hemophiliacs. It is uncommon in Southeast Asia and China. Hepatitis D virus is a small single-stranded RNA particle with a diameter of 36 nanometer. It has a double shell. Outer shell consists of HBsAg and the inner shell consists of delta antigen. So it requires this coating of HBsAg. That's why it requires HBV. The inner shell consists of delta antigen provided by a circular RNA strand. It is highly infectious and can induce hepatitis in any HBsAg positive host. HDV replication and proliferation takes place within the nuclei of liver cells, and markers for HDV is basically the HDV virus itself, which will be detected through PCR, the HD antigen, which is again detectable in blood and in liver cells, and anti HDV antibody, which is mostly IgM type, and this will later be replaced by IgG type, but IgM type of anti HDV is a reliable marker. Coming to hepatitis E virus, it is enterically transmitted, that is, it transmits through fecal-oral route. It is waterborne and it affects young and middle-aged adults. It has caused epidemics in Asia, Indian subcontinent, sub-Saharan Africa, and Mexico as well. High mortality rate is seen in pregnant women, around 20%. It is self-limited and no chronic liver disease occurs. Incubation period is 6 weeks. The virus is a enveloped single-stranded icosahedral. The HEV virus is a single-stranded icosahedral non-enveloped virus, and this virus has been isolated from stools, bile, and liver of infected person. The serological markers for HEV includes IgM type of anti-HEV antibodies. Later on, this will convert into IgG type. Serum transaminases. HEV RNA can be detected in stools through PCR analysis. Clinical illness. All these occur simultaneously, and there is no specific range of time period between them. So around 6 weeks, everything will start appearing. So this was about the viruses in individual. Coming to the clinico-pathological syndromes of viral hepatitis. Clinico-pathologically, the virus hepatitis can give rise to the following states: carrier state, that is without apparent clinical disease and with chronic hepatitis; asymptomatic infection, acute hepatitis; chronic hepatitis without progression to cirrhosis and progression to cirrhosis; fulminant hepatitis. HAV and HEV does not cause chronic hepatitis or carrier state. Drugs and toxins can cause identical syndromes. Serological studies are integral part of diagnosis and typing. An individual without manifestation of symptoms and harbors and transmits an organism is called as a carrier individual. Suffering no adverse effects means he is a healthy carrier. Chronic liver disease will be present, but there won't be any disability, that is, there won't be any damage to the liver. Commonly it is seen in HBV and HCV infection. It will affect neonates around 90 to 95%, and 1 to 10% of adults will be affected. Acute viral hepatitis is caused by almost all type of viruses. All produce similar clinical features. It has 4 phases: incubation period, symptomatic pre-icteric phase, symptomatic icteric phase, and convalescence phase. Incubation period, we already know that it varies among different viruses. Like example, we have already discussed that hepatitis A incubation period is about 15 to 45 days. B is about 30 to 180 days. For hepatitis D, it is about 6 weeks. Hepatitis C, it is about 7 weeks. And for hepatitis E, again, it is around 6 weeks. Some people will say 15 to 60 days. So it all depends upon the strain of viruses. It is a pre-icteric stage. Pre-icteric phase will be similar for all. So this phase is markedly prodromal constitutional symptoms. That includes anorexia, nausea, vomiting, fatigue, loss of appetite, fever, rash, arthralgia, and there will be tender hepatomegaly. There may be low grade fever preceding the onset of jaundice, especially in hepatitis A, and this is the earliest laboratory evidence of hepatocellular injury in pre-icteric phase is elevation of the transaminases. Icteric phase is the prodromal period which occurs after onset of clinical jaundice, and the constitutional symptoms will start diminishing. So there will be symptoms like dark colored urine due to bilirubinuria, clay colored stools due to cholestasis. There can be pruritus as a result of elevated serum bile acids, loss of weight, abdominal discomfort, tender liver will be there. So along with that, you can detect the icteric phase by laboratory findings, which will be because of the deranged liver function tests like elevated levels of serum bilirubin, transaminases, alkaline phosphatases, prolonged prothrombin time, and we can also find hyperglobulinemia, that is the immunoglobulin IgG antibodies will be raised. Serological detection of hepatitis antigens and antibodies are specific tests which can help in detection of the type of viruses. Then there will be post-icteric phase. So this will last about 1 to 4 weeks, usually followed by clinical and biochemical recovery in 2 to 12 weeks. And the recovery phase is more prolonged for B and C viruses. The chronic viral hepatitis is symptomatic biochemical or serological evidence of continuing or relapsing hepatic disease for more than 6 months with histologically documented inflammation and necrosis. So this is the definition of chronic viral hepatitis. So duration is very important, that is for 6 months. All these should be there. That is symptoms, biochemical, serological evidence, and histological documentation. Causes of chronic viral hepatitis, so HBV, HCV, and HDV are notorious for causing chronic hepatitis. Wilson's disease, alpha-1 antitrypsin deficiency, chronic alcoholism, drugs like isoniazid, autoimmunity can also cause chronic hepatitis. Clinically, the clinical features include fatigue, malaise, loss of appetite, bouts of jaundice, spider angiomas. So what are spider angiomas? That is because of capillary destruction of the capillaries or destruction of the hemorrhages in the capillaries. Palmar erythema, tender hepatomegaly with splenomegaly will be there. Hypergamma-globulinemia, hyperbilirubinemia will be there. Prolonged prothrombin time. So in acute viral hepatitis, grossly the liver is slightly enlarged and soft and greenish. Histologically, the hepatocellular injury will occur. Mostly it is seen in zone 3, which is centrilobular zone. Here the reactions are shared by viruses and drugs, means you cannot differentiate just by histopathology which type of virus is affecting. But one thing is the HBV virus will give a ground glass appearance to the hepatocyte and a sanded nuclear appearance because of the HBC antigen. Along with that, the hepatocellular injury can present in the form of swollen and granular cytoplasm of the hepatocytes around the condensed nucleus. So that's called as ballooning degeneration. They also can be cholestasis because of biliary stasis, which is usually not severe, and that will present in the form of intracytoplasmic bile pigment granules. And one more thing is the apoptotic bodies, which is also called as Councilman body or acidophil body. So this mostly has intensely eosinophilic cytoplasm with small and pycnotic nucleus, which I have shown already earlier. Along with that, there will be single cell necrosis, which is also called as dropout necrosis, where isolated or small clusters of hepatocytes undergo lysis. Then there will be bridging necrosis. So bridging necrosis means it is characterized by bands of necrosis linking portal tract to the central vein. So, or it can be between one central vein to another central vein, or one portal tract to another portal tract. So a line of hepatocyte from the one portal tract to another portal tract, or one central vein to the other central vein, will be destroyed. That's called as bridging necrosis. So dropout necrosis, bridging necrosis. Then there will be Kupffer cell hypertrophy or hyperplasia and interface hepatitis. So interface hepatitis means just at the limiting plate there will be chronic inflammatory cells. Sorry, not chronic, there will be acute inflammatory cells. So this is a foci. This is a liver which is slightly enlarged, soft and greenish. Here it is, here you exactly cannot make out anything, but one thing is for sure that they are sort of yellowish focus, which can be foci of necrosis. Mononuclear cell infiltrate is seen in the limiting plate. So this is a chronic inflammation which is seen. Limiting plate is something which is one or two layers of hepatocytes immediately surrounding the portal triad is called as limiting plate. So this limiting plate is destroyed. The hepatocyte in the limiting plate is immediately adjacent to the portal tract. It is destroyed by the inflammatory cells. This is the ballooning degeneration of the hepatocytes, and this is the eosinophilic councilment bodies. So there will be collapse of the liver parenchyma. This is again ballooning degeneration of the hepatocytes along with councilment bodies. Acidophilic bodies are present, and when you draw it, it should be like this. So this is a central vein lined by endothelial cell, flattened endothelial cells, and this is a portal tract showing biliary ducts as well as the portal vein and hepatic arteries. So this portal tract will be infiltrated by T lymphocytes, that is chronic inflammatory cells, and just immediately adjacent to these will be the dropout necrosis. So here also you can see dropout necrosis. Only the outlines are left. Single cell necrosis will be there. Along with that, you can see ballooning degeneration of the hepatocytes. Sometimes they are converted into acidophilic or eosinophilic, completely eosinophilic bodies that are called as apoptotic councilment body. Along with that, there will be Kupffer cell hyperplasia. Okay. Chronic viral hepatitis is basically the same definition. Here also, morphologically, the chronic hepatitis, or grossly, there won't be any differentiation as such. But again, it can be of two types: chronic persistent and chronic aggressive hepatitis. Whatever it is, the histopathology doesn't differ. It is common to both HBV, HCV, which is notorious for chronic hepatitis. So in both of them, you can see all these type of the inflammation of the portal tract, that is portal tract lesions, interface hepatitis, bridging necrosis, and fibrosis. So like this is a normal portal tract. Portal tract showing a portal vein, a bile duct, and a hepatic artery. This is the limiting plate, which is a layer of hepatocytes, one or two layers of hepatocytes immediately surrounding the portal tract. Then there'll be cords of hepatocytes coming towards the central vein. Okay, again central vein is surrounded by one or two layers of hepatocytes. Now in chronic hepatitis, what happens is the portal triad will be surrounded by inflammatory cells. So here you can see that the small lymphocytes are there, macrophages are there, and the limiting plate here will be destroyed. Okay, so limiting plate is eroded here. Portal triad will be expanded. Bile ducts will proliferate, that is, they will increase in number, and they will be bridging fibrosis, that is, from one portal triad to the central vein there will be fibrosis connecting central vein to portal triad. Then there will be dropout necrosis again, which is called as focal necrosis. So all these are the features of chronic hepatitis. Clinical course is unpredictable. Cirrhosis, hepatocellular carcinoma, and death can occur. Fulminant hepatitis is when the hepatic insufficiency progresses from onset of symptom to hepatic encephalopathy within 2 to 3 weeks. It can lead to fulminant hepatic failure. Causes can be hepatitis viruses A, B, C, and D, which causes 50 to 65% of fulminant hepatitis. Drugs and chemicals like acetaminophen, isoniazid, MAO inhibitors, halothane, methyl dopa, mycotoxins, ischemia, hypothermia, fatty liver of pregnancy also cause fulminant hepatitis. Morphologically or histologically, the features of fulminant hepatitis, grossly the liver is small and shrunken, and the capsule is loose and wrinkled. The cut section will show muddy red areas along with yellow necrosis areas. But histologically, there will be two forms of fulminant necrosis. One is submassive necrosis, and other is massive necrosis. In submassive necrosis, what happens? In submassive necrosis, large groups of hepatocytes in zone 3, that is central lobular area, and zone 2, that is mid zone, these are wiped out, leading to collapsed reticular framework. Okay, so what is zone 3? Zone 3 is always around central vein. That is why it is called as central lobular area. So this is the zone 3 around the central vein. So this zone 3 and zone 2 will be necrosed in submassive necrosis. In massive necrosis, what will happen? Entire lobule is necroted from the central vein to the portal triad. So as a result, loss of hepatic parenchyma, all that is left in the massive necrosis is just the reticular framework, the portal tracts, and the central vein. Inflammatory infiltrate is not much in fulminant hepatitis. Like if you compare the chronic hepatitis here, there were lot of chronic inflammatory cells, okay, in chronic hepatitis. But in fulminant hepatitis, there won't be much of inflammatory cells. But there will be bile duct proliferation. Normally we have a single bile duct, but here we have multiple bile ducts in the portal triad. Regeneration is disorderly, forming irregular masses of hepatocytes. So this was about viral hepatitis. Thank you.